What's going on, everyone? It's Kurt coming back to you for the Lionshare Poker Academy. Bringing you part two of this deep run we had in the $150 500K guarantee on GG. We left off with the Queen 9 hand, which was an interesting one. So we're just going to pick up from here and see if we can fly right through these hands on our way to the final table. I was gonna say pretty dry board here. I remember this hand in the moment. I was slightly tempted to call here, but I think I just ended up giving it up here. It's kind of nice having the Jack of Hearts here, but the majority of his hands are going to be 9x and let's say big cards with a heart or flush draws here. So I think it's probably fine for us to just give this one up here. It's gonna be pretty unbalanced range. I don't think Queen Jack's probably doing that well, but I definitely considered it. Here I would roll between an ISO and check back. Looks like I rolled high, so I decided to ISO. And we just flop quads. Pretty good flop for this hand. Now on this board, I'm going to be betting very high frequency. I think once this player just calls versus an ISO, my range is still going to be a little bit on the stronger side. His range is going to be lacking a lot of these over pairs that might end up limp 3 betting. So I would say I have a range advantage on this board, and I'm going to be betting here pretty high frequency. So even with quads, I'm going to end up betting small here on the flop. On the turn, I could definitely mix here. I think I rolled whether or not I should be betting or checking. Again, like we want to be checking back a fair amount on the turn because if we're betting every hand in our range, we're going to have a lot of trash on the turn. So definitely going to be wanting to check. I would assume a hand like quads is going to want to check at least at some frequency because it's a hand that really can't be beaten. And I would say he's going to have to defend a fair amount of ace high and king high if he's going to be calling two streets. It's kind of hard for him to have a pair unless he has like king 9, ace 9, maybe even a hand like queen 9 of diamonds that he decided to check call with. So yeah, we end up getting the fold on the turn, but I wouldn't hate a check here. I definitely think I rolled for it. On the turn, I think I rolled again. I think we can both flat or 3-bet this hand as long as we don't fold. I decided to go with the 3-bet here. And same on the flop. These monotone flops are going to be pretty mixed in general. And the same is going to be with our flushes. We're definitely going to want to mix some bets and checks on these type of boards. And that's because a lot of this defending range is going to include a lot of suited combos. So these monotone boards are usually pretty good for the in-position callers range. As the out-of-position raiser, I'm going to be weighted more towards like overpairs and then hands like king queen off, king jack off, and then some like worse like lower value suited combos like queen 9 suited and maybe some king 8 suited, things like that. So we can't just bet every time here, but when we do, I think the small size is preferred. I definitely rolled in this spot, and looks like I decided to go with check here, which is fine. This card too, I don't think we want to just be betting here always. The king's going to be pretty good for us overall. I'm assuming this player can still check back flushes at a frequency. I would assume most people are going to be betting though. So I also rolled here on the turn. Again, I think we are uncapped to still having flushes. I would definitely be checking pocket jacks here sometimes. I would check back some king jack here, so we can definitely have some 2 pairs. So we still have strong hands in our range. I would say our opponent is still relatively uncapped as well. So I don't think we can just go crazy here, but I think I rolled a high number, decided to bet, and we get the fold. And again, this is a combo where I'm going to roll between ISO raising and checking. Looks like I rolled low, so I decided to check. In this board, I don't think we really want to be raising with this specific combo. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense, so I'm just mainly going to pure call. Ace is kind of whatever. I mean, I'm still going to have some check back ace X that's going to be calling versus a min bet on the flop every single time. So I definitely get to the turn with some ace X. With this specific hand, I think we still have to call. It kind of sucks blocking flush draws that he could possibly be betting, but I also expect him to be fairly aggressive on this ace here. So I don't think we can fold a 6 quite yet. And on the river, I would probably be in give up mode if he ended up betting. And then, of course, I don't think we need to be turning our hand into a bluff, and it's definitely not strong enough to value bet. So we're just going to check back on the river and end up taking it down versus the jack 10. With the 10 of diamonds here, I would probably be pretty high frequency bet in this player's shoes. So especially unblocking the spades that I could call and then be auto folding on the river to a bet. So I think this is a missed opportunity from our opponent here. And I definitely would have ended up folding if he fired a bet on the river. So pretty fortunate to just have him give up in that spot. And pocket aces. Okay, this guy only has three big blinds, so easy call. Good game. This is going to be a board I'm going to be c-betting my entire range with. Super dry board, pretty good for my range. Opponent's going to have a hard time defending, even versus a small bet. On this turn, I think we can do a couple things. And this is one of the things I actually want to talk about with you guys. This is something I see from a lot of people who just have these like draws here. Whenever they have like a flush draw or a straight draw, they just want to bet because they have equity and that's fine overall. But you definitely want to be mixing up your play with these draws because if you're just betting every single draw on the turn, that means when you check and then any straight draw or flush draw fills in on the river, you're just not going to have those hands. So that's why we kind of want to mix it up with our play here. And I'm definitely going to be rolling whether or not I want to be betting or checking on this turn. Looks like I rolled pretty high. I also think the size is pretty good. The board's pretty wide open, no straights or flushes possible. So if we are betting for value on the flop, more than likely on the 7 of clubs here, we are still likely having the best hand when it comes to the turn. So we want to put a big bet out there basically to maximize our value when we have our strong hands and then put maximum pressure on when we are semi-bluffing with a hand like this. Really put some pressure on, let's say, if he has like a king 4 diamonds or even 9-8 of hearts here, really put some pressure on our opponent here. And then we just get the gin river, of course. That's how we know we're running pure. There's nothing else to do on this river but to jam all in. And he ends up snapping with the king jack. Obviously, nothing he could do there. Super unlucky for him to get this run out when he has so much here. I think he played his hand fine. His hand on the flop can definitely check raise at a frequency. And I actually think it should be a pretty high frequency check raise for him on this flop, being one of the strongest kings that he's going to have here. Definitely don't hate the call, but I think it's going to be low frequency. So, yeah, it's fine for him to be check calling here, but I would mostly expect this hand to be check raising on the flop. Luckily enough, he didn't, and then we just end up getting the cards to barrel off with and making the nuts. So that put us in a pretty good position in this tournament here. Now we're really going to apply some pressure. Luckily, we just get a really nice hand to open with. This board, we definitely want to be mixing sizes. I'm not sure how much this particular hand wants to be betting. I would say pretty low frequency. So I'm going to roll probably like a 20% bet here. And again, if we're betting, we're mostly going to be wanting to use a larger size. Ended up checking here, which I think is standard. On the turn versus a block, I think we have a very easy continue. We unblock all of his 8-9s, all of his diamond draws, and we very likely have the best hand here at a frequency. So I would even be calling versus like 3/4 here on the turn. And this is just literally like the worst river ever. All of his diamonds get there, his 4-5s get there, his 8-9s, 8-10s have a pair now. So very easy river to give up on. And I expect them to be betting pretty high frequency on that river as well. Whoops. So 75 effective. Yeah, I'm just going to pure call in the spot when we are this deep. Versus check check on the flop, I'm definitely going to roll between block bet and check. I think I rolled pretty high, so I decided block. And on this river, I think I basically want to be pure check here. This isn't a great run out. I'm not sure if I want to be pure check here, honestly. I think I probably want to be checking a lot. He can still have some ace high in his range for sure. On this run out too, it's just kind of hard for us to be bluffing. We would have to be bluffing a hand, let's say, like 6-5 basically, I think would be our main bluff, 6-5 suited. Maybe, I don't think we flat like king 4 of diamonds or a hand like that, or maybe king 5 of diamonds, things like that. So we're not going to have many bluffs, and that means we probably, if we do bet, we want to bet on the smaller side. We're also not going to have a ton of value bets here either, only just some ace X here. It's also kind of hard to get called by worse. But yeah, I'm kind of confused about this hand, honestly. I'm gonna look this one over. I'm really curious on this trip threes run out here. I think we might get an interesting output here where I'm kind of I'm not sure what frequency should be, so I'm not gonna get too much into it because I probably need to do some work myself on this particular hand. And yeah, he flopped the straight on us and checked back the flop, which I don't think is really a thing. It might be like super low frequency, like 10% check here, but more often than not, especially as deep stacked we are, like you want to start putting some money in here for sure. If you're this player, you unblock all pairs, and I'm definitely flatting like some ace 3, ace 2, pocket 3s, pocket 2s. So there's a lot of hands that are going to continue here. I would think this would be less of a bad play if we were a little bit more shallow stacked, But when we're so deep, I think there's way more importance between, not between, but there's a lot more importance of building a pot and really trying to get max value for a hand like this. So we got really fortunate here as well. Was definitely surprised to see that hand. This hand I think is going to be a low frequency 3-bet, mostly a call. And again, we are getting a little deeper here, so I'm not really trying to play these massive pots versus other deeper stacked opponents. And on this board, I think in theory, we probably get to play some raise here versus a small bet. And this would probably be one of the best candidates to do it. This is our strongest non-paired, our strongest one-pair ace hand. But again, like ICM is starting to become a thing here. I'm not really trying to build a pot with a quote-unquote thin hand. Like I think we can still get value here. He's still going to call us with ace jack, ace 10, even ace 8, maybe some king 10 of hearts, things like that. But in general, I think this board is going to be slightly better for him because he has all pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket nines. We really only have pocket nines and then let's say ace 9 and maybe low frequency king 9. So he definitely has a nut advantage. So in general, I think I just want to be playing a very high frequency call. And we also have a pretty easy call down if he happens to triple barrel on some runouts. Not like super easy, but most of our decisions are going to be quite easy. On the turn, I definitely want to roll whether or not I want a better check. Just because he bets flop and checks turn doesn't mean he's lacking these strong hands. He could definitely bet up the flop with, say, a hand like pocket nines and decide to check turn, looking to check raise. So I don't think we just want to bet here every single time. And again, I'm not really trying to build a huge pot. I know this hand is likely the best hand quite often, but I think it would get like really complicated if we end up betting and he ends up check raising. Like if he ends up check raising with a hand like Jack 10 or 7-6, I'm gonna be in a pretty difficult spot here. I think we would still have to call, but in general, I don't think people are bluffing enough in these spots either. So I think it's definitely okay to roll. I think betting is fine too, but I also think checking is a thing. Then we get a pretty good river here. I'm pretty sure he's mostly in give up mode, but we obviously have to value bet. I think I rolled sizes as well. I think we can go for a medium size as well as a bigger size as well. I think I kind of like the medium size. I mean, it's fine. It's whatever. I just think people are a little more unbalanced in these spots where they end up checking twice. They're probably more prone to have mediocre type hands to give ups. So I'm okay with throwing in this mediocre size a little bit more than a larger one if I think his range is a little bit on the weaker side, just to make sure he calls us a little bit more. And he ends up folding anyway, so I don't think it really would have made much of a difference. Easy open here. This is also a board I'm going to be rolling on. I would say with this specific combo, I'm going to be low frequency bet, and when we do bet, we're going to want to use a bigger size. I must have rolled pretty high here to be betting here, as I think the main play here is mostly going to be to check. But I think betting definitely gets in there, especially having some sort of backdoor straight draw to go with it as well. And here is I'm also going to roll between 3-bet and call. Looks like I rolled low, so decided to call. And when this player bets into two opponents, for one, his c-betting range is going to be a bit stronger because he needs this bet to work against two opponents instead of just one. In theory, we might be able to continue here, but I just made a pretty tight fold here, and I think it's probably fine. I think I slightly like check raising more than check call, but I think I might prefer folding over check raising. So, and again, that comes to the fact that he is betting into two people, so his range is going to be a little bit smaller. So I would be a little bit more likely to check call or check raise if we were just heads up. So I don't mind making a little bit of a tight fold here. I think people in general are a little bit on the tight side when they are c-betting into multiple opponents instead of just one, as it should be. This board, I think we might actually be pretty high frequency check. These ace wheel cards are usually checked at a pretty decent frequency. I would also say with a monotone board, we want to be checking quite a bit as well. I could be off on this too. It might be a little bit different when we're at 22 big blinds as opposed to being at 50 or 100 big blinds. But either way, I definitely rolled a check or bet on this board. Looks like I rolled pretty low, so I decided to check. And then on the turn, I think we definitely need to start putting money in here. I think I rolled between sizes as well. I think we can go small or big. If we're ever checking back a hand like pocket aces or let's say king queen of hearts, we want to start building a pot here now to ensure that we can play for all the chips by the time we get to the river. And then we can have some block bets too in case we want to protection bet with a hand like, let's say, ace 4 of diamonds, ace 5 of diamonds, things like that. So I think we definitely have two bet sizes here. Pretty standard open, I think, with King 7. It's kind of close to the bottom of our range, but I think it's fine. This board, think I think we still want to be pretty high frequency bet here. Uh, I kind of like this size here as well. I think we can probably like use all three sizes on a board like this. This is kind of a lot going on, but we also have a lot of really strong hands here. We're also opening from early position, so our range is going to be fairly tight, and this board is going to be pretty good for us. We're going to have all pocket nines, pocket tens, pocket jacks, king queen, maybe even some 8-7, some 10-9 suited, some jack-9 suited. So we have a lot of nuts here, but he has a fair amount of them as well. So it's not like we can just go crazy. So I think that's why we definitely can still be pretty high frequency bet, but can use multiple sizes here. I must have rolled the mediocre size to end up using this one. On this turn, I'm not sure if we ever get to bet with this specific hand strength in general. I don't think I would hate it. Like a block bet here on the turn wouldn't be terrible. That being said, well, mainly because we unblock diamonds and spades, that might continue. So we could just like block bet here on the turn and then check a lot of rivers and just take it down. But I think I decided to roll here for sure. Must have rolled low if I ended up checking. And then this river kind of sucks. I think without blocking a diamond, I'm just going to give up. He can definitely be checking some ace X and diamonds on this river, expecting me to go kind of crazy here. And I think I rolled as well, and I rolled a pretty low number, so I was kind of okay with giving up. I'm going to be kind of interested to see what the solver says about the turn and river action, the way this was played. So it's going to be one I'll be interested to look at in the future. Decide to call here. We probably get to low frequency 3-bet, but decided to call here. Pretty easy fold versus bet on this board. And pocket nines versus 25 big blinds. I think this is going to be a pretty standard jam here. And I remember he snapped, so I just said, oh shit, we're dead here now. But yeah, we end up winning a massive flip against ace king. So this puts us in pretty good contention to make some moves here. With the king queen, I think we can mix raise and call. Must have rolled low, so decided to call. If this guy ended up ISO raising here, I think we would mainly be limp jamming at 28 bigs effective. And on this board, I'm going to be very high frequency check. This board's going to be better for the big blinds range who just checks back. He's going to have all 7-3 off, 6-3 off, 7-6 off, 4-5 off. So he just has a lot that hits this board. And we definitely want to be playing a little bit more on the passive side on a board like this. And easy check fold when he bets for the bigger size. Pocket tens, I think we're going to be pure 3-bet in this spot. Although now we just have a much easier decision. 15 bigs, I think we just ISO jam. I definitely don't think we just call and potentially fold if this guy jams. I mean, ranges are still pretty wide here, and this hand is pretty much the nuts in this spot. So, and good jam by him as well with the 15 bigs. So just unlucky to run into our pocket tens. And with ace king here, I think we can mix up our play. I think we can definitely bet or check. We want to be mixing up our play a little bit more here multi-way than we would if we were heads up versus the big blind. Same can go if we were just heads up with this player right here. So I think I definitely rolled here. I think the smaller size is probably good. This is like, for example, I mean, if we're betting here for value, like this hand doesn't need a whole lot of protection. There's no flush draws yet that we need to worry about. There's only gut shots that we need to really worry about as well. So, and our ace high really doesn't need a lot of protection. So I think the small size is probably going to work best here. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some big bet as well, but I'm mostly going to be betting for the small size on that board. This is kind of a similar flop to the ace deuce 3 of hearts that we saw earlier. I think on these boards we definitely want to be mixing in some checks, especially the deeper we get in these spots. I think the more we want to be checking boards like this. So I must have rolled pretty high in order to bet here. I think the worse our ace X's are, the more frequent we want to be checking here. So I would much lower frequency bet a hand like ace 8 and much higher frequency bet a hand like ace king. And if we're betting on the flop, I'm pretty sure I'm mostly going to be high frequency check on the turn. I probably rolled for a bet on the turn still though, because it's kind of nice unblocking hearts, and we could easily bet here on the turn and then just check any river. So I would mostly be looking to check and mix in a small frequency bet. I must have rolled pretty high in order for me to be betting here on the turn. I also think we can probably use two sizes here. I think we can use a 3/4 size, and then we can use a slight overbet size. I think with this specific combo here, I like the 3/4 size a little bit more because it is getting kind of thin here. So I'm not sure if overbet's really the best option, but I wouldn't hate it. And let's see, about 50 effective. I think I want to roll between a 3-bet and a call. I must have rolled low. Flopping pretty good here. Now I remember the spot. This is another one that I'm going to be interested to look at. So, and this basically goes to the fact that I ended up rolling whether or not I want a bet or check here. I don't know if we do get a check frequency with this specific hand, but I would think on a board where we literally have like, this is one of the strongest hands we're going to have. We have pocket threes and ace three for our nutted hands. We never have pocket aces, never have pocket kings. And this player can have all combos of aces, kings, and pocket threes and ace king. So he has a lot more nuts in the spot. So because of that, I want to think that we get to check at least at some frequency with a hand this strong. I might be wrong since this is like one of our only strong hands here, so we might just be pure bet with this hand. But anyway, I did roll a check frequency, and I ended up rolling a really low number, so I decided to check here. Again, I'm not sure if this is right. I definitely want to look this up, but I think it makes a little bit of sense when he has such a nut advantage for us to be at least at a frequency slowing down with a hand this strong. But again, I could be wrong. And once he checks again on the turn, I think we have a pretty easy bet. Start putting in some money. And this is pretty close. I remember I called here pretty quickly. In general, I think these big blind jam spots are, people are not jamming as wide as they should be here. So to counter that, we want to be calling a little bit tighter than we normally would. But that being said, I think ace 10 is just like way too strong here. I think ace 10 suited, I would end up snapping here. I think even ace 9 suited would be pretty close, so I didn't really think about it that much, and I think it's still fine. I'm going to run this through ICMizer and just run this guy's range if he was shoving tighter than what's recommended, and just see if this is still as much of a winning call as I think it may be. We ended up getting pretty lucky here, though, versus pocket queens. I still think this call is probably fine, but I'm going to run this one in ICMizer myself just to see how close it was, because, again, I do think this is one of the more under bluff spots in tournament poker. People's big blind jam frequencies are usually a lot stronger than they should be. Easy call here with the 7-6, I think. And on this board, versus a bigger bet, I think we can probably still roll a small check raise frequency, but I'm mainly going to be calling here. And on this turn, I think this is a decent turn for us. I'm not sure if we call all 6-4. Yeah, we do call 6-4 because that's an open-ender. So we definitely call 6-4. We probably call all of our Jack-9 with the overcard to the 10. So we are also calling 8-7 suited. We're calling, let's say, 5-8 of diamonds, I would say. So this card's actually pretty good for us. Opponents' only nuts here, I would say, would be pocket 10s, pocket 7s, pocket 5s, and I don't even know if he uses a bigger size for pocket 10s here. Definitely, it would be okay with pocket 5s. Pocket 7s can probably mix. I don't think he ever has pocket 8s. I don't think he bets this big on the flop with a hand like 2 8s. So I think this card is actually better for us. I'm not big into leading in these spots, but I think in spots where equities changed pretty dramatically, where we have a lot more nuts now than our opponent might, I think we can start leading. I'm not sure if we did, but I definitely remember rolling. Yeah, we ended up checking here, which I think is fine. And then on the 5 river, it's this is going back to us being like, it's really hard for us to be unpaired in a spot like this. So I think we get to counter that by doing a lot of high frequency block bet here on the river. So that's what we ended up doing here. And he ended up calling with a better hand, which I guess is fine here. Again, I'm going to run this. Again, this is a spot I've been studying quite a bit as of late. Essentially, when we check call flop and turn goes check check and we get to the river, and it's really hard for us to be unpaired based on the run out. I think we essentially do a lot of high frequency block bet on the river. So yeah, I'll look this one over as well and see how accurate I was on that hand there. So get called in 2 spots. I think on the 7-7 deuce, this is a pretty dry board, but my range is lacking a lot of 7x. So I think I'm still going to be pretty high frequency check here, especially since I'm at least 40 bigs deep with both of these opponents. So even if I have like pocket aces, pocket kings, I'm not really trying to build a big pot here on the flop. So I'm going to be pretty high frequency check here. And it's kind of strange. I don't know if we ever get to fold here. This is a pretty small bet. I think we still probably have to call here Kind of sucks not having a backdoor flush draw, but again, I would probably be pretty high frequency check call with pocket aces, pocket kings. These hands don't need a whole lot of protection, and he could be value betting a lot worse. I also don't think he has like pocket twos almost ever. He doesn't have a lot of 7x unless it's maybe a7 suited specifically. I don't think he's flatting hands like 7-6, 8-7 here, so I think this player is also lacking quite a bit of 7x himself. That being said, I definitely ended up calling one, and then he makes this weird like little block bet here on the turn, and I'm just thinking in general, this is probably a hand like, let's say, pocket nines, pocket sixes, things like that, that he doesn't want to put a lot of money in, but he also doesn't want to check. So I think this is really like an unbalanced range. I don't like this bet size either. I think this range is pretty face up. I could end up attacking this if I think he has like some weaker pairs here, but I'm just really not in the business of trying to make what I think is a weaker player fold any sort of value. So I'm just going to let it go here on the turn and live to fight another day. Easy call with the jack deuce, and pretty easy fold even versus small on this board. And with the 10-9 here, decent bet size, I would say. He's probably not betting full frequency here. I think he would definitely be mixing bets and checks, as I'm going to do with this specific combo. I want to be check raising a lot more higher frequency if I have the 10 of hearts or 9 of hearts, and a lot lower frequency without it. So I'm sure I still rolled a low check raise frequency here on the flop. I must have rolled pretty low, so I just decided to check call. And then on the turn, we do pick up some additional equity here. It kind of sucks because we can already be dead, but for this size, and I actually think this size is good, I think we probably still have to call. I'm not 100% sure on it. This is going to be another one that I want to run. If he ends up betting even like half pot to 2/3, I think we have a really easy fold, but for this size, I think we probably still need to continue. I actually ended up folding, which is a bit surprising. I don't hate this, honestly, for reasons previously stated. And again, it might look a bit on the tight side, but I don't mind making a bit of a tight fold if I think the spot is kind of close when we're getting pretty deep here. So definitely an interesting spot there. We could have potentially been leaking a little bit to end up just check folding with a hand like that, but easy call for us here with the ace king, and we are running super pure here. I think a pretty standard jam by him with the ace queen, and just waking up pocket kings, and yeah, running good. So we decided to call here with the 5-4 versus an ISO. Terrible board for us. I don't expect a lot of checking here, almost ever. This is, I mean, I'm going to be slow playing some pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens at this stack depth, blind on blind. But overall, he's going to have a big nut frequency. So I expect him to very high frequency bet for a small size here. So when I see him check, I'm just guessing that this is kind of an unbalanced range. He's going to have a lot of like queen x, king x, and bad ace x if he's doing this, and maybe some inappropriate traps here. So I'm just not even thinking about putting in some money at any point here, even if he's checking back here and we have like the nut low. I'm just going to be pure giving up. I think we're pretty much pure limp with this specific hand. And again, on this flop, I think we are lacking the 3x that our opponent is by checking back. He's going to have a lot more 3x in his range, so I'm going to be pretty high frequency check on a board like this, even though we flop top pair. And on the turn, I think I rolled a better check frequency again. Looks like I decided to check, which I'm fine with. And then on the river, I think we are going to be close to pure bet. I think I want to roll a low check frequency again, just to let him bluff his air hands and maybe even value bet worse. But I definitely see us getting called by some more 6x, some deuce x, maybe even some king high or ace high is going to hero here. So I'm definitely fine with betting for a value. And versus this, oh yeah, it's just an all-in. I was going to say, how am I V-pipping here versus a raise? So yep, going to take that one down. And I think we're going to do about 5 to 10 more minutes here, see how many we can get through. On this board, I think I remember this hand. This might be final 2 or final 3 tables at this point. I think we're essentially 1 and 2 in chips, myself and this player here, which made me think, in general, I still think we want to be very high frequency c-betting a board like this and probably mixing between small and big sizes. In general, I would say just against a player this deep, I probably just want to be high frequency betting real small. Yes, of course, he has a deuce x advantage. He's calling all of his suited deuce x's, but that's a very small part of his range. I still have a ton of overpairs that are really destroying the majority of his defending range here. And this is really what I didn't want to see, but we have a no-brainer decision here. We are just going to call and reevaluate. Six is actually better for him as well. He should be check raising a fair amount of 3-5 suited, some 6-5s, some 4-6s, some 6-X of spades. So I essentially have zero straights here. I probably don't have many deuce X's either, unless it's ace deuce specifically. I could potentially open pocket deuces, and then I probably have pocket fours. Other than that, I never have 3-5 here. I can have pocket sixes for sure. He decides to bet here on the turn again. I expect him to bet here a fairly high frequency on this specific turn card. But on the flip side, he can also be value betting worse than me. He can value bet a hand like 6-5 and get value from my flush draws, my ace threes, my ace fives. And also he can have a hand like pocket eights, pocket nines that he wants to be putting in some money to for value and protection here. So he definitely can't be folding yet. And then he bets this half pot size on the river, which made me like, I got really sick to my stomach when I saw this. In theory, this should be a super easy call. And I definitely think it is. I don't know if this river size is a thing either. It may be. This is definitely going to be a spot I'm going to run myself. But yeah, I just think that this is like so value heavy quite a bit. But the thing that got me to really call and not think too much about it is that, what I was saying earlier about him potentially having pocket nines, pocket eights. I can definitely see him value betting a hand like that. And if I'm in like have a hand like, let's say ace six of spades, let's say pocket sevens, like I'm in a really tough spot, and he can definitely get value from some of those hands as well. I could even potentially hero with some ace highs here. So the fact that he can be value betting worse hands than me just makes it a super no brainer when he makes it this small, and he has value, or he's value betting worse than what I have is what I'm trying to say. I think we have to call. And then I was very surprised to see him just turn over this hand. This is not a thing. He should just be check folding here on the flop. So he just ended up spewing a massive pot to me with only 2 or 3 tables left to make me the pretty clear chip leader at this point, I think. So we're pretty happy to see that, and definitely noting this for the future if we play another pot versus this player. In this spot, I'm not even sure if I rolled here. I think we must be final 2 tables. So as the bigger stack here, I'm going to be applying a lot of pressure from the small blind to the shorter stacks in the big blind. I think it's still fine to roll a low a low limp frequency here, but I'm definitely going to be ramping up the aggression in the spot now that I have 100 big blinds and we're at the final 2 tables here. Also on this board, this is a super dry board, so I'm going to very high frequency c-bet in this spot. And again, that goes back to me having a lot of chips here and really wanting to apply a lot of pressure to the shorter stacks. The 10-4, I think for the majority, we want to be limping a lot of our suited combos, but we definitely get some raise with some of our worst suited combos. I would say 10-4 is one of our weaker suited combos. And again, just to reiterate, we want to be ramping up the aggression with a lot of chips here versus the shorter stacks. This is going to be another similar situation. Pretty good board for my range overall. So I'm going to be high frequency c-betting here with the majority of my range. Once he calls, this hand is very low down in our range. Queen's actually really bad for us as well. He's going to have all queen X's in this spot, but I mean, so am I, but this hand is just like way too low in our range to ever consider double barreling. We also block some hands that he might call on the flop and fold on the turn, like king 10, 10, 9, hands like that. So our blockers are bad as well. So a pretty easy give up spot, I would say right there. And versus a pretty small 3-bet, I think we have an easy call, even though I kind of hate the spot. I mean, we make it 160, he makes it 380. Yeah, I mean, this is pretty small, so I think we do have to defend. Normally at this stack depth, these hands don't play very well, but I think because of the small size, I decided to flick it in here. And even though in theory we could probably end up doing some check raise or check call, I just ended up folding. This range is probably a little on the strong side, and I'm really looking to just flop something really good here. I'm not trying to take too many thin spots here. With king 5, I think this is kind of close, but we can still call, and definitely have to check fold here. Easy call with the jack 10 as well. Looks like we ran into a player who has a lot more chips than us. And versus a big bet, I'm even kind of sick to my stomach seeing this. I think he probably gets to use some big bet here for sure. And so I'm not even going to roll a check raise frequency here. I'm not really trying to build a massive pot versus a player. I mean, I'm either second or third in chips, and this guy must be chip leader at this point. So I'm not trying to build a huge pot when we have, this hand is fairly strong, but I'm not really trying to get it in for 56 big blinds here and really bloat a pot. And this turn is quite a bit better for our range, I'd say, than his. And I saw him go really big here. And in theory, I know this hand is a call here, but I also expect him to slow down a lot on this particular turn card. And then when he bets, I'm also blocking some flush draws that he can be double barreling as well. So I actually made a super tight fold here. I know in theory, like, we have to be calling here 100%, but this just comes down to me thinking that this player is probably a little more on the strong side than he should be, and me just not wanting to like blast off with a quote unquote marginal hand against a guy with a lot of chips. So this is definitely an exploitable fold, and it could be a massive leak or a massive mistake. I wouldn't be surprised if it was, but I didn't really hate it at the time, and I don't really hate it looking back at it now. I think it's okay for us to make some folds like this. We can't go too crazy like that because like people can just run us over if we're folding hands this strong, but I think because of the situation and this particular board where he's like throwing in a massive amount of money where the board's actually pretty good for me, I think I'm going to make a pretty exploitable fold here and, not lose too much sleep over it. So I think we're going to do one more hand here. I'm not sure how many more we have until the final table. We might be, yeah, okay, so this has to be final two tables because I remember I ended up calling here versus this player. But this might even be the final table bubble here. And this is purely an ICM decision here. I think we're about third in chips, and a lot of the players who are between like 10th through 5th place are really in that like 10 to 20 big blind ratio. So even if we get it in like ace king to ace queen in this spot, I'm not like really happy about it because it's just a massive amount of chips, and the value of our stack at this point of the tournament is just so huge. I really don't want to be three betting very wide against a player like this. Even with ace king, I think it's okay to throw in as a flat. I'm not 100% sure on the spot, but I think in theory I really kind of like it. Specifically because of the shorter stacks being like far shorter. Like I'm in third place with 50 big blinds, but I think fourth place had like, let's say 25 to 30 big blinds. So there was a big jump between third and fourth place, and that is really going to incentivize me to play a lot of small ball versus the chip leader here, which I think is fine. And he bets pretty big on a board like this, and I'm just going to get away from it. We also have to worry about this player as well. So going to make a tight fold here. And it looks like this is the final table right here. So we're going to cut it off and pick up from the final table. I think I'm going to go over every single hand at the final table too, just so you guys can see every single hand that I either decide to play or decide to fold, because you're going to see a lot of really interesting decisions here once we get to the final table. And I'm definitely going to want to review them more in depth. So yeah, we're going to cut the video off right now and pick up the action from the final table. So just want to say thanks again for the support, guys, and I will see you soon for part 3 of this deep run. Thanks, guys.